Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 18th of March 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, just a quick shout out here. I know I've been going on about Gitcoin Grants a lot lately, but I did forget to mention that you should definitely donate to the BanklessFR and MetaversalFR and the Daily Gwei FR Gitcoin Grant. Now what this is basically there's a team that translates the Bankless, Metaversal, and Daily Gwei newsletters into French, and they do this all for free, all on a volunteer basis. So definitely go support them and kind of like donate to them on Gitcoin here, and you can just easily do that by obviously the same way you normally kind of donate to them, and you know, it works to support them, works to support their translation for people that in the French community, right? The future of France. So to speak, right? It's part of the meme. But yeah, definitely go donate to them if you haven't yet. So Frank Chaparro from The Block put out a tweet. I guess this came out like shortly after I recorded yesterday's refuel, but basically he said the Morgan Stanley has alerted its legion of 16,000 wealth advisors that it will offer accredited clients access to Bitcoin-related funds. Source at the bank says it could offer access to at least one fund by NYDIG or Galaxy Digital. This is pretty bullish, right? I mean, you know, it's not just going to be Bitcoin only. I'm sure they're going to get access to other kind of crypto assets here, but the fact that we're seeing this kind of like really rapid institutionalization of this asset class, right? Where, you know, just a year ago, I guess, maybe a bit over a year ago, like there was no companies that really had Bitcoin on their balance sheets or anything like that in any big way. And then obviously Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy kicked it off, and you know, everyone started doing it, right? We had Tesla do it, we had Square do it, there's a bunch of other companies that have done it, and now we're seeing it happen with ETH as well, which I'll go into in a sec. But basically, you know, this is, I mean, you might think, well, you know, why do these wealth advisors kind of need to be told that, you know, to invest in, you know, in Bitcoin or in crypto in general? And this is like a world that not many people kind of get exposure to, and it's a very regulated world. It's not like these kind of like wealth advisors can go out and tell their clients, oh, you should buy this asset class, or you should buy crypto assets, because obviously they're incredibly risky, right? They go down and up, you know, really fast. So, you know, they can't just go and tell their clients this, and you need to take into account risk because they're very heavily regulated. So this is kind of like, I guess, Morgan Stanley saying, you know, we think that Bitcoin is, you know, is here to stay, right? Is long-term investable, has, you know, I guess, you know, potential to go up a lot more from here. And, you know, you can kind of like start, I guess, offering this to your accredited clients, and offering these funds to your accredited clients. So very bullish there from Morgan Stanley. Obviously, you know, a lot of crypto is based on kind of replacing the banks and things like that. But I think we replace them from the inside, right? I don't think we'll get to a point where like these banks aren't going to buy Bitcoin before it takes over the world, if that's what happens, right? You know, if BTC becomes like this, you know, incredible reserve asset that's worth more than, you know, nation states currencies, which, you know, that's up for debate. But generally, you know, the banks aren't just going to like sit on the sidelines and watch that happen. They're going to get a piece of that and kind of ride that wave up. And that doesn't mean that the banks are going to necessarily, you know, have more power because of this. I think it's just prudent for them to do this, right, as an investment. Same with, like, I guess, Ethereum working within DeFi. I mean, we're a long way away from a kind of like mainstream bank integrating a DeFi protocol, right? I think, yeah, we're definitely a long way away from that. But I don't see it being something that doesn't happen. I definitely see it happening at one point in the future. I could see, you know, Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan or whatever, or any kind of like bank basically offering their clients and saying to them, hey, you know, you can get X% on your stable coin, right? And then, you know, the way they generate that yield is that they use it in DeFi sort of thing. So yeah, definitely interested in kind of like seeing that play out and seeing kind of, I guess, what happens over the next few years, because it's going to be a wild ride. I mean, this is just the beginning of the institutionalization of this asset class, which is really positive to see. And as I was saying, there are institutions and public companies now buying ETH. And I spoke about this company, Meitu, I guess maybe a couple of weeks ago. They bought ETH back then as well. But it was announced yesterday that they bought more ETH and BTC. And They actually bought more ETH than BTC again, so they ended up buying another $28.4 million of ETH and $21.6 million of Bitcoin here. So really, really bullish. I mean, I can't wait to see the next company do this, right? I mean, it's great to see that this company's doubled down, they've bought more ETH and everything like that, but I really want to see, more and more companies jump on board, because it's like what happened with Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy, right? He was the first one, and there always needs to be that first one to get the party going, and then the second one joined in, and the third, and then it gets quicker and quicker, right? But it does take a bit of a time before the first one goes for the second one to join in, and it obviously takes a lot longer for like the first one to kind of like join in. So yeah, I'm curious to see if over the next few months we do see more institutions buying ETH, public companies putting it on their balance sheets. I definitely think we will, and I wrote about this in the Daily Gwei newsletter today. I mean, it's just an obvious kind of bet for me. It's like there's more of a chance that will happen than won't happen, sort of thing. So if you had to put like a percentage chance on, I guess more public companies buying ETH, I would say it's up in like 90+% chance. So your upside there is pretty good. And I think just from a general kind of perspective right now with what ETH's doing, I know a lot of us are a bit disappointed right now because ETH is just sticking around like the 1700, 1800 mark, and BTC set a fresh all-time high the other day, and ETH seems to just be not doing much right now. And I mean, again, not investment advice here, but I do think, ETH likes to do these things where it goes sideways for a while and then like kind of teleport up, as I like to call it. I mean, I call ETH the teleport coin, where it doesn't do anything for a while, goes sideways, and then it'll move like 2 or 3x up in like a few weeks, right? Which is always funny. I mean, you can go on the chart and it kind of plays out like that. We saw it recently play out like that in January, right? Or in the end of December, kind of like throughout January. And, I don't know why it happens like that. I mean, it's a bit weird that, it sits idle for so long and suddenly it kind of explodes up. And, I don't know how sustainable that is, because how much of that is just like traders kind of catch a pump, how much of it is like actual buying activity. I do know that a lot of people are still loading up on ETH and buying here. I'm still buying ETH, of course, so there is buying pressure there, but I think ETH is moving into this phase now where it needs these kind of bigger buyers to push it higher, because it's such a large market cap. It needs what Bitcoin kind of had, because MicroStrategy started buying Bitcoin when it was at around the same market cap as ETH now, or maybe even less, right? So that kind of money is what's needed to push ETH further here, and I think we're going to get there. I definitely think we're going to get there, and over the next few months at least. And yeah, I'm still obviously very positive for ETH and ETH's price. I know it can be frustrating watching it do kind of nothing and watching absolute crap kind of pump up as well. I feel it. I feel it for sure. And I kind of like feel it with, I guess, like the quote unquote competition that Ethereum has now, and people saying, oh, we're investing in Ethereum killers because it's like a hedge against Ethereum failing. I mean, I think this is all just short-term noise. I do think that ETH's going to move eventually, and Ethereum, especially with layer 2, is going to take back the narrative from, Ethereum can't scale to, wow, Ethereum can scale. But we're so early on this stuff, it's very hard to pick winners, very hard to know what's going to happen. I mean, I truly believe Ethereum has already won, in terms of like the most market share for a smart contract chain. And I do believe one day Ethereum can flip Bitcoin in market cap, but, that might not happen for a while, but I do believe it. But in general, there's a lot of people coming into the ecosystem, a lot of newer people that aren't buying BTC or ETH, right? They're buying like Cardano or Polkadot or Avalanche or whatever, right? Because, they're new. I mean, I'm sure when we were all new, when I was new, I was falling for like all of this kind of stuff and thinking, this chain can do this and this chain can do that and blah, blah, blah. And then during a bear market, I kind of was like, okay, well, all these chains kind of do nothing, and Ethereum is where all the innovation's happening. So, I think it's just, it can be hard during a bull market for sure. And I remember putting a tweet out in like August of last year where I said to people, basically, with the coming bull market, you need to come to peace with that the fact that you're not going to be able to catch most of the pumps that happen. And I put out a thread the other day discussing kind of like how I think about investing in this space. And really, you just have to have a long-term outlook. I mean, I'm talking like 5+ years. You can't just say, I'm going to put money in this and in 6 months, I'm going to pull it out, sort of thing. It's not long enough. ETH can sit flat for, it sat flat for like 2 years in the bear market, right? And then now it's at like 18x what it bottomed at in the bear market. So, you can't really have, and you know, if you invested at the bottom or like around the bottom at like $150 at the end of 2018, right? You saw some really nice gains, but over like 2 to 3 years. And, you know, if you want to keep riding the current bull market, it's probably going to extend into kind of like later this year, maybe even next year. So from that point of view, you know, you did very well, but you obviously waited for it and you waited patiently for it, like a lot of us did. So yeah, I always take the long-term outlook. I always try not to kind of, you know, I do look at CoinGecko and look at these random things pumping and just think to myself, you know, obviously retail investors are here because this is why this stuff's pumping, but, you know, when is this going to kind of flow back into the fundamentals, you know, where, you know, and do I believe it will? And I do believe over time it flows back, right? A lot of it's also traders chasing momentum, you know, in kind of like the markets, momentum counts for everything. So if you see something that has a lot of momentum behind it, you're not going to fight that as a trader, like good traders at least. You're going to just join in on that wave. And then it becomes like a self-fulfilling thing, right? Where the momentum builds and builds and builds, but eventually that stops. Like the music stops there. The momentum runs out because you run out of kind of like this fresh money pouring in, which is really what's pushing it up. Because the traders all get in like, you know, ideally they get in way earlier because they notice the momentum first, but then they want to take profits too, right? And then the more people that take profits and the less money coming in, it kind of like, you know, there's more sellers than buyers, right? That's all it is at the end of the day. And, you know, during a bull cycle, a lot of people don't take profits to cash and keep it there. They tend to redeploy, and they tend to redeploy into things that haven't moved yet. So that's why you do see these kind of teleportations, I like to call them, from ETH and sometimes Bitcoin as well, after, you know, these other coins kind of pump up a bit because people are taking profits into those things. And I think that's fine, but it's just it's hard to tell in a bull market because there's so many new people, and doing fundamental research and investment can pay off. But you know, you just got to deal with the fact that someone can throw a bunch of money at something that you think is total crap, and it can pump just because of the fact that, you know, a lot of other people threw money into it too, and for whatever reason. So yeah, just a bit of, I mean, not investment advice, just a bit of kind of like, I guess, color there for the way the market is right now. And because I've had people message me and be like, you know, what's going on with ETH? It's a stable coin. I'm like, go look at the ETH chart. Go look at what ETH likes to do. It loves to be a stable coin for a while and then just explode up. So ETH to me is always going to be a long-term investment, right? A very long-term investment. I ideally don't want to sell any of my ETH. You know, because I want to be able to just do things with it, whether that be staking or, you know, using it as collateral to do whatever. I know a lot of people like me as well. And on top of that, I have a bunch of other investments as well that are definitely long-term and productive because they're in DeFi. So yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. So Stani put out this thread, Stani from Aave, I should say, sorry, put out this thread today, basically describing the state of the Aave protocol in numbers. So total flash loan volume is the first kind of statistic here, or metric, and that's almost $4 billion of flash loan volume. That's crazy, because these flash loans actually have fees attached to them, which gets paid to the Aave protocol, which gets paid out to Aave stakers. So that's really, really cool to see. And he's got a bunch of different kind of metrics here. I mean, the last 30 days, the flash loan volume has been $260 million, which is pretty crazy. $36 billion of deposit volume through the Aave protocol with no liquidity mining. I always like telling people this when they look at Aave and be like, you know, they've grown so much. Like, what did they do? Did they do liquidity mining? I'm like, no, they never did it. They never did liquidity mining. Maybe they'll do it in the future, but up until this point, they haven't. And they've grown, you know, so well. I mean, Aave is one of my favorite protocols on Ethereum just because of the fact that they built such a good product that they didn't need liquidity mining for. That's when you know the product is good, right? When people are using it not to earn some token rewards or to yield farm, but actually using it because they value it kind of beyond that. There's a bunch of other metrics here, like the new users. So there's been over 5,000 new users in the last 30 days, which is really interesting to me because we think DeFi is so big, but it's so small. I mean, I saw a stat the other day that only like 3% of Ethereum addresses have actually used DeFi or like interacted with a DeFi contract. What do you mean? You're telling me that 97% of Ethereum addresses, like kind of like, I don't know if they're active addresses, but in general, you're just telling me that 97% of Ethereum addresses haven't interacted with Uniswap, right? Like, that's just bizarre to me. So that's just telling me that there's a lot of people who'd maybe just buy ETH or buy some tokens, withdraw it to their own wallet, or create a wallet on an exchange, and basically don't do anything with it. Don't go and do DeFi on it, whatever. So that to me is incredibly bullish. The fact that we still have so many more users to kind of like tap into. And, I'm actually going to go over this on the data pump video for next month, where I kind of look at the metrics and kind of map all this together, because I think it's really interesting. But yeah, I mean, go check out this full thread from Stani. It's got all the metrics in it, and you can kind of have a look for yourself. So Dan Finlay from Metamask quote tweeted this tweet from Light Clients, where he was describing basically how Ethereum wallets are going to be getting a significant upgrade soon, or maybe getting a significant upgrade soon. And the proposed change means that externally owned accounts, or EOAs, which basically refer to just Ethereum wallets. So actually, maybe I should just clarify that. So externally owned accounts, or EOAs, are Ethereum wallets that you and I use, like our MetaMask wallet or whatever. Whereas the other type of account is called smart contract, right? Which is obviously smart contract accounts. So yeah, this whether you see EOA or externally owned account, it just refers to a normal Ethereum address. But basically, this proposed change will bring, will immediately be able to send batch transactions, expiring transactions, unordered transactions, and more. Now, why this is kind of significant here, and as Dan points out, this could make Ethereum dramatically more usable because as soon as this July, so this may go into the London hard fork with EIP 1559, we could have gas-subsidised transactions for all accounts and contracts and more. So basically, you could have maybe like an app or a protocol subsidize the gas cost for their users, right, up to a certain amount, trustlessly and programmatically. So yeah, I mean, that's really, really awesome, right? That's a huge usability upgrade. EIP 1559 in general is a huge usability upgrade. I can't wait. I honestly can't wait, because I've been doing so many transactions over the past few days, and like I'm just so annoyed by the fact that I always have to speed up a transaction, because I put in, a transaction and then the gas fees get ahead of me, and I have to basically bump up my Gwei to get my transaction in a kind of timely manner, because I'm actually generally impatient with my transactions. I probably overpay way too much, and that's what EIP 1559 aims to address. Or one of the core things it aims to address is, and it will address, is that people are overpaying because of that. And also, it basically, most of the time, almost all of the time, guarantees that your transaction will get into the next block, the first time you do it. You don't have to speed up transactions, nearly as often anymore, and you won't be overpaying for fees, which is awesome, right? I love the fact that 1559 is known for its fee burn, right, of ETH. But again, that's to me probably one of the least interesting things about it. I think the most interesting thing is that we're actually going to have a usable Ethereum fee market now on layer 1. And I've discussed the other benefits before about it basically acting as like an on-chain gas oracle for smart contracts and things like that. And I don't know how much it helps with MEV, but there is some stuff going on there too. So, this other usability upgrade here would be very welcomed with 1559 for sure. So Connext, actually, there's two things about Connext, and I don't think I've got it up here. So Connext actually rebranded recently. They're still called Connext, but they've got a new look. They've got a new website, which you can go check out at connext.network, new logo and everything like that, which I think is really, really cool. But basically, the other tweet that I was referencing is that I spoke about Connext and how they're doing basically fast, trustless, non-custodial L2 to L2 transactions and L1 to L2 and cross-chain and all that sort of stuff. And they're currently integrated with, a bunch of different solutions like Arbitrum and Manic and xDai. And in this kind of, screenshot, what they're showing here is that you can do a Manic to xDai interoperability via Connext. And that's available on kind of mainnet here, which I think is really, really cool. So, I've said it so many times that Ethereum is this economic nexus that sits in the middle of all these different things, right? Ethereum in the middle, layer 2s as spokes, side chains as spokes, centralized exchanges as spokes, anything feeding into Ethereum as spokes. But then we need to connect all those kind of things together, right? They're basically existing there, but there's, they have bridges, but these bridges are generally centralized. So what we need to do is we need non-custodial, trustless bridges that can be used not just for bridging assets across, but also for swaps between these sorts of things and like kind of fast withdrawals and fast kind of L2 to L2 to communication. And that's what Connext does. So Connext is basically the bridges between all of these things, which I'm incredibly bullish on. And, as I said, they're already live on mainnet. They're working with all the top kind of L2 teams as far as I know. and also the other chains like xDai and Manic and things like that. And, it'll all just feed back into Ethereum, right? You just bridge over, do what you need to do, you bridge back, I just see this as really, really additive. And I actually want to put together some thoughts about, I guess, where the future is going right now and what the cross-chain world is going to look like. Because obviously we're kind of going into this territory where there's going to be multiple chains. I do think Ethereum is going to be the chain that dominates still for the foreseeable future, probably forever. I mean, I don't see any reason to be bearish on that. And I actually consider like L2 to be it's not a separate chain because L2 is secured by Ethereum, but like that's part of the multi-chain universe, right? Where Ethereum is communicating with L2s, Ethereum is communicating, via bridges with other chains like Manic and xDai, and Ethereum has been communicating with centralized exchanges and services for a while, right? All that sort of stuff. So yeah, and that's and Connext helping with this, especially the cross L2 communication for Connext is what I'm most bullish on, because people were very concerned about, I guess, composability, right? Where they're like, and I spoke about this in length yesterday, so I won't rehash what I said, but essentially like composability breaking on layer 2s is a major concern, and Connext is coming up with, ways to kind of alleviate that concern or at least remedy it as much as possible. So very, very bullish on this team, very, very bullish on what they're delivering, and I kind of like can't wait to see, more of the solutions, the L2 solutions and stuff integrate with Connext. So, I mean, on the note of layer 2, I put out a tweet today saying Ethereum layer 2 is here, it's just not evenly distributed yet. Now, what I mean by this is that we have a lot of layer 2s live today, right? We have Loopring, we have ZK Sync, we have Connext, I guess, is a form of it, right? We have, I guess, like side chains that checkpoint to Ethereum, or like plasma chains like Manic and things like that. So we have all these L2s, and there's more that I'm kind of like forgetting to mention. But my point is that they're not evenly distributed, right? We don't have a lot of the apps that we need on L2 yet. It's very limited. I mean, Loopring's doing amazing work, don't get me wrong, but Loopring isn't Uniswap, unfortunately, right? Uniswap has 60% of the DEX volume. Uniswap is not on L2 yet, right? Compound is not on L2. Aave is not on L2. Maker is not on L2, right? So from that perspective, we have L2s, and there's more coming with Optimism, Arbitrum, Immutable X, all this good stuff, right? But their distribution is very, very uneven right now. It is very, I mean, I wouldn't call it fragmented, but it is very like unadopted, I guess, at this stage. And we're going to get to that stage where it gets, adoption. I'm expecting fireworks when Optimism releases, right? Especially from Uniswap with V3 and things like that. I'm expecting some big stuff there. But again, it's going to take some time to adopt this sort of stuff. It's not going to happen overnight. But I do think that, I actually do think that the Binance Smart Chain kind of activity is really bullish for Ethereum L2s, because what it shows there's some incredible demand for cheap transactions, which is obvious, right? But it's good to have proof of this. Now, I've mentioned before how I believe that a lot of the kind of, I guess, transactions and volume and stuff is fake on BSC, and I still think like maybe a lot of it is. But at the same time, I do know that there's real users going over there, real people using it because they're just priced out of Ethereum. And that's fine. But I do think that a lot of that usage is going to flow back to Ethereum, especially on layer 2, once we actually get those layer 2s out there and offer that same experience. Because it's the same thing. You still use Metamask. You still use your same Ethereum address, right? It's the same kind of experience, but secured by Ethereum. And using technology and apps that haven't just been copycat forked like what exists on BSC. So I do think that users are going to get a ton of value out of layer 2 here, and we're going to see a more even kind of distribution form in the next few months. So obviously, God, I don't know if you could find someone who's looking forward to layer 2 as much as I am at this point. I know we're all looking forward to it as part of the Ethereum community, but I mean, as someone who has been beating this drum for so long now, as someone who has to basically answer so many questions around this every single day, and I try my best to answer all of them. Like, I get so many DMs all the time, and I try my best not to ignore them, especially if they're genuine questions, because, a lot of this stuff is confusing for people, right? I mean, imagine being new to the ecosystem and just discovering what Ethereum is, and then your first experience is running into the high fees, and then you go into like something like BSC and you have cheap fees. You don't know the difference, right? You don't know that BSC is centralized. You just know that you can use your MetaMask wallet, you can use your Ethereum address, and you can do cheap transactions and still do what you do on Ethereum, or like similar things to what you do on Ethereum. So from that perspective, education is critically important here. And on that front, actually, I went on DefI Dad's kind of Yield TV show today to talk about layer 2s. And on there, I made a point to talk about the different trade-offs between kind of like layer 2s and these things called side chains and other blockchains, and how a lot of them are not decentralized, right? And I had this analogy that I came up with while on the kind of video here, where I said that being in Ethereum and using Ethereum and is like basically being in the castle walls, right? There's this, you can imagine like this massive castle, and you have these fortified walls, and you have this massive army kind of protecting you, from the outside kind of world here. And that's kind of Ethereum, right? That is the security guarantees you get with Ethereum, and also the decentralization guarantees on top of that. Now imagine you open the gates, right? You kind of like put the drawbridge down, and you kind of like exit the city, right? You exit the city walls, you exit your fortress, and you go out into the world where you have minimal protection, right? There's not really anyone kind of protecting you. You may have like a personal guard or something like that if you're an important person, but generally it's like much less secure, right? This is what things like BSC are, right? You are leaving the fortified walls of Ethereum to live, or at least travel around in a much more dangerous arena, right? So from that perspective as well, I mean, by living in the fortress, living in like the main city, it's more expensive, right? That's why Ethereum is more expensive. But these other things aren't. And kind of like layer 2s are kind of like a cheat code here, where you can still get the kind of security of that fortress that is Ethereum, but you get much more scalability and much cheaper transactions. And I'm talking like 1/100th of the cost sort of thing, or 1/1000th of the cost, depending on the transaction types. So from that point of view, I think that's what users should be aware of, is that you are fully protected when you are in Ethereum from, you have like the strongest security guarantees, the strongest decentralization guarantees, and censorship resistance. But as soon as you leave, as soon as you bridge across to another platform that is centralized or not as decentralized as Ethereum, you're giving up that security. And that's what I try to hit home in this video. But I suggest you go read this. We spoke for almost an hour and a half here. It was a really great kind of stream. DefI Dad's great. I mean, we got to talking the other day about this, and he's like, dude, you need to kind of teach me about L2, because I watched one of your refuel videos and you know your shit. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it, please. I need to educate more people about L2. So that's why we kind of did this. So definitely go check it out. It was a great, I think it was a great kind of great video here. So Lamboshi put out this really interesting kind of like meme today called, he basically says ETH is ultrasound money, and he has a picture of the ETH logo in a womb, essentially, which is pretty funny, because that's the first thing I think of when I think of ultrasound as well. But anyway, this is something that Justin Drake has been, the Ethereum Foundation researcher Justin Drake has been memeing for a while, and the Bankless guys, David Hoffman and Ryan Sean Adams, have picked up on this. I've been trying to meme it some more as well, but yeah, it originally came from Justin Drake. And the reason why he called ETH ultrasound money is because potentially one day ETH is going to be deflationary, right? Whereas Bitcoin is capped supply, and people refer to it as sound money, ETH is deflationary supply, and that makes it ultrasound money, which is, I think, a really great meme. And the reason why ETH can potentially be deflationary supply one day is because of the way ETH's monetary policy is going to work once the merger happens. So right now, ETH issued each year is about 4%. So we're issuing about 4% new ETH each year to pay proof of work, to pay miners for the proof of work that they're doing. And on top of that, we have, like ETH2 as well right now, paying out a little bit to stakers, which is like 0.3%. So it's kind of negligible there. But once the merger happens, right, we're going to be paying most likely maybe, between 0.5% and 1%. Per year in perpetuity for issuance for securing the beacon chain, just to stakers, right? We get rid of proof of work. There's no more 4% issuance. It's 0.5% to 1%. Now, on top of that, we're going to have EIP 1559, which is obviously coming with a fee burn. So if we get to a point where there's enough activity on the network where more fees are being burned than ETH being issued each year, that means ETH becomes net deflationary, and ETH becomes this ultrasound money that Justin and a lot of other people in the community now love to meme about. So that's the explanation of the meme. And I think it's very powerful because, for a few reasons. It plays on Bitcoin calling themselves like sound money, right? Or Bitcoin is calling Bitcoin sound money, and it kind of like takes that and improves upon it. And it's not just like something that is in the distant future or is something that's theoretical. It's actually something that can happen in practice. And it's funny because the amount of fees already being paid on Ethereum L1 would already burn more ETH that's being issued under proof of work, So we'd already, like on some days, not on all days, but on some days. So we're already there. So you can imagine in the future where Ethereum is much more used, there's much more fees being paid on L1, especially by, different layer 2s securing themselves on L1. That just becomes like a lot of ETH being burned, and we can get to net deflationary kind of supply there. So yeah, really, really cool meme here. I know that Bankless has a podcast coming out again with Justin Drake, I think today. So definitely keep an eye out for that, because he basically describes this, in much more detail, and I think it's, David Hoffman hyped it up to me pretty much, so I think it's gonna be really cool. So Fractional announced themselves today on Twitter. So what Fractional is, it's a decentralized fractional ownership protocol. Basically a protocol that takes NFTs and turns them into, pieces, or fractionalizes them. So you can see here, there's a kind of like example of an original NFT being like an ape CryptoPunk. And what Fractional does is it splits this original NFT into 100 different ERC20 tokens, and you can own a piece of this art instead of owning just the ape itself. This is interesting. I think it's definitely a use case that will find kind of like a product market fit. But in general, I wonder what happens in the long term. What happens if you split this NFT up into pieces, right? And then one of these pieces goes missing, right? Or someone loses the private key to them. That means this original NFT can never be reconstructed with all those pieces again. So it's actually missing one of its pieces here. As far as I know, that's how it works. Maybe it doesn't work like that. Maybe there's a way to kind of reclaim that. I don't know. That would be a centralization vector, maybe. But still, it's very interesting to do fractional ownership here. But I definitely do worry about the long-term implications of that. But there's not too much info here in the kind of blog post. I think that they're just obviously announcing themselves coming out of stealth, but they're going to be doing more stuff here. So definitely go check this out if you haven't already. So the Index Co-op introduced their Flexible Leverage Index today, which is created by defipulse. Now, the Flexible Leverage Index it has a token ticker called FLI or FLY. So I'm going to be referring to it as FLY. So what this is, it's basically a kind of like on-chain, fund, you could call it, that allows you to have the safest, easiest, and most cost-effective way to basically get leverage exposure. So what it does is it's basically, this is how it works. So basically it takes an underlying asset being ETH, it kind of leverages that ETH up, and it kind of uses Compound to do that, and maintains like a maximum leverage ratio and a minimum leverage ratio, and then kind of like manages that position for you. So you don't have to worry about getting liquidated or anything like that on your own. You don't have to be worrying about managing your position, making sure that your liquidation price isn't kind of like too low or too high, or anything like that, so that you don't lose money from that sort of thing happening there. So yeah, this is really cool. This is like the third or fourth index launched by the Index Co-op at this point. And disclosure here, I'm an advisor to Set Protocol who run the index, or not run the Index Co-op, but are very heavily involved in the Index Co-op and our own index tokens as well. But yeah, I just thought this was really cool. And this is something that the team has been working on for quite a while now. I think it's very good for people who want to leverage their assets but don't want the risk, right? And we've seen similar products come from Yearn before. The ETH Vault, the ETH Vault back in the day was extremely popular, and they recently relaunched that too. This is kind of like the same, or I guess like a similar concept here, but managed by defipulse, built on Set protocols, infrastructure, and kind of like under the Index Co-op umbrella as well. So yeah, definitely go read this if you want to get a better understanding of everything that's going on kind of under the hood as well, and the methodology behind it, and kind of like how it works and how to buy. Unfortunately, through the front end on token sets, this is blocked to US residents. But because this is DeFi, that doesn't matter too much, because you can go on Uniswap and basically, on Uniswap you can trade for the Fly token anyway without having to, there's no KYC or anything, but it's kind of like a geofence here. But the token sets website still just uses Uniswap in the background anyway. So yeah, and there is actually a supply cap on the Fly right now. I don't know how high it is. I think it's like 50k units. I don't know what that is in dollars. I think the price is $100, so 50k, it's like a $5 million I think, yeah, I think I'm doing my math right there. So yeah, but I think there's still room here. So definitely go check this out if this is something you're interested in, and go read this blog post for more details on that. All right, that's it for today, everyone. Thank you again for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, give that video a thumbs up, join the Discord channel, subscribe to the newsletter, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.